A Michigan judge has been heavily criticized for making the unpopular decision of placing a 15-year-old girl into a juvenile facility after she failed to do her homework. The girl, who will only be identified by her middle name Grace, has had a history of bad behavior, but that being said, these probation guidelines that she was put under really left zero room for error, and now she is feeling the full force of the corrupt judicial system in America. Welcome to InformOverload. I'm your host, Johnny Rogers, and you're watching the #1 tea-spilling entertainment news show on the internet. First and foremost, before we kick this video off, let us know down below if you've been using Zoom for school and tell us how that's worked out for you. Also, if you don't want to miss another daily video from us, make sure you tap that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Plus, make sure you stay all the way until the end of this video because I'll be reading out some of your comments as well. Now, without further delay, let's get right into today's story. Grace is black in a predominantly white community and in a county where there is a disproportionate percentage of black youth involved with the juvenile justice system. When the spread of the coronavirus became an imminent threat, every school was ordered to close and shift suddenly to online learning. Not only was this a difficult adjustment for the teachers, it really was tough on kids with learning disabilities. Grace has ADHD and felt unmotivated and overwhelmed when online learning began on April 15th. With barely any live instruction or structure, it was easy for her to get distracted and therefore made it difficult to keep herself on track. In order to properly evaluate both sides of this conversation, though, we need to speak about how the police became involved with this family in the first place. Grace's mother, Cherise, was told by doctors that she would be unable to have children, so when she became pregnant at 44, she was shocked to say the least. On top of that, she had to raise Grace on her own after the girl's father did not want to be involved. When Grace hit her preteen years, like most teen and parent relationships, things started to get a little bit rocky. They would argue about the typical things like Grace not keeping her room clean, and then they regularly had arguments about her always being on her cell phone and using social media too much. But by the time that she was 13 years old, these arguments had escalated to a point where Cherise now believed that turning to the police was her only option. Her only way to handle it, really, when in reality she just wasn't aware that she could have also contacted like social services. Regardless, the police show up after they argue over Grace taking her mother's iPhone charger, of all things. When the police enter the home, though, they discover that Grace has also stolen an iPad from her middle school without permission. Then at her mother's request, she had Grace enter a court diversion program in 2018 for counseling. Then fast forward to November 6th, when a passerby called the police after hearing Cherise crying for help and honking her car's horn. Grace was upset that she couldn't go to a friend's house and had reached inside of the car to try and get her mother's phone, and in the process of trying to retrieve it, ended up biting her mother's finger as well as pulling her hair. At least that's what the police report said. Now, here's the issue again with getting the police involved in a family matter like this one. Now, a 15-year-old has a record with the cops. She was visited by them previously, and now she has an assault charge filed against her. It's pretty tough when you're only 15. With no one really explaining to her as well that this was wrong, she would just continue to get herself into more trouble. Just weeks later, she picked up another charge for larceny after she was caught on video stealing another student's cell phone from their locker. That being said, charges shouldn't really have been laid because even the boy's mother said that she didn't want to press charges because the moment that Grace realized that what she was doing was wrong, she returned the phone to her son. Months later, after Grace and her mother attended family therapy, she largely stayed out of any trouble. When the lockdown happened, though, a caseworker was assigned to Grace in order to report to the courts that she was behaving. On April 21st, a juvenile court hearing on the larceny and assault charges against Grace was done via Zoom. Ashley Bishop, a youth and family caseworker for the court, told the judge she thought Grace would be best served by getting mental health and anger management treatment in a residential facility. The prosecutor said that he agreed, and Grace's court-appointed attorney said little, but asked that she be given probation because she had committed no new offenses and because of the risk of COVID-19 in these facilities. When speaking with the courts, Grace told them, "My mom and I do get into a lot of arguments, but with each one I learn something and try to analyze why it happened. My mom and I are working each day to better ourselves and our relationship, and I think that the removal from my home would be an intrusion on our progress." Which is exactly right, especially considering that they had already been making progress without the involvement of law enforcement. The judge, however, did not care one iota and instead actually reprimanded her for the fights with her mother and the thefts at her school. Although Judge Mary Ellen Brennan decided not to remove her from the home, but instead sentenced her to an intensive probation. The terms of this meant that she would require a GPS tether, regular check-ins from her caseworker, counseling, no phone, and the use of the school laptop for educational purposes only. She was also required to do her schoolwork, which brings us to the crux of this story. After Grace failed to do her schoolwork, Cherise confided in her daughter's caseworker that Grace was having difficulty with the online learning and accidentally slept in one day. Just 5 days later, the caseworker filed a violation of probation against her for not doing the schoolwork, without even taking into account that Grace had already expressed that this would be a challenge and that she would need some type of assistance. Even Grace's teacher responded to an email from the caseworker saying that Grace was not out of alignment with most of her for other students, meaning that lots of kids were not completing their homework. On May 14th, Judge Mary Ellen Brennan found that Grace was in violation of probation for not submitting schoolwork and ordered that she be detained at Children's Village in Oakland County, Michigan. Grace was then taken out of the courtroom in handcuffs and separated from her mother, which is just extremely disappointing. And instead of that judge looking for other solutions and ways that she can get additional support, the first step that the judge took was to incarcerate her. The judge consistently referred to Grace's situation as a treatment program rather than jail, and said that her decision will depend on whether she feels it's in the girl's best interest to be removed from the program without first completing it. In my opinion, that decision should be made by her mother, but either way, I want to hear your thoughts on this story in those comments down below. Do you think the judge was correct in her ruling, or do you think that this is just another sign of racial discrimination when it comes to executing the law? With that, let's check out some of your comments from the video titled "Kanye West claims Kim Kardashian tried to get him committed after rally." What a week it's been. NC says, Kanye is president? Yeah, not all dreams should come true. You know what they say about the American dream? You gotta be asleep to believe it. Ems90 says, new presidential rule, no social media. I wholeheartedly agree with this rule, and it should be probably written into the Constitution somewhere. Hi Z says, this breaks my heart, man. This guy needs help and people just mock him for it. I totally agree, and I'm trying to do my best not to just mock him during these clearly episodes of Mania. Nathan KC says, love the Golden Knights shirt. Thanks so much, Nathan. I was a huge fan of what that team accomplished in their first season. Very impressive, and I can't wait for hockey to start back again. Cynthia Wilson says, it's truly unfortunate that he is so resistant to getting help. Sadly, sometimes the people who need it the most are just super resistant with it. It has a lot to do with putting their egos in check and then just admitting that they need the help. Kanye, big ego. For a good reason. Huge, super popular dude. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our editing team for all of their hard work. If you enjoyed this video, then please show us some love here by tapping that like and subscribe button. Plus, don't forget to leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on today's story. And for more videos like this one, all you gotta do is tap that playlist when it pops up. From InformOverload, my name is Johnny Rogers, and until next time, stay classy.